Achtung, welcome to We Have Ways of Making You Talk with me, Murray and James Holland, sitting in the balmy May sunshine in the gardens of the Royal Chelsea Hospital.
Yes.
Because we are very fortunate. You'll hear some hustle and bustle in the background.
Yep.
You hear I don't know if you're finely tuned ears, you can hear the sound of compost being moved.
Yeah.
Wheelbarrows, the odd crane in the background, the odd bandsaw, because we are
potting,
and there's some serious potting over there. There's some very hot potting going on because we're at the Chelsea. Is it the Chelsea Flower Show? I always think it's
the Royal Horticultural Society Chelsea Flower Show.
It is. Yeah.
Now, and we're here. Why are we here, Jim?
Well, we're here to talk to John Everiss, of whom I am an enormous fan, because John did this absolutely stunning display, which has now been moved to the cliffs above Arromanches.
Ooh.
And he went and did a sculpture of a veteran, but also kind of mirrored the statue of the veteran is mirrored by a kind of sort of ghostly kind of figure of a Tommy, which is supposed to be his kind of sort of younger self, and it's just incredibly moving. And I remember going up there and tweeting about it. It must have been one of the most kind of liked and retweeted tweets I've ever sent, I think.
Yeah, brilliant.
So then Rachel then spotted that John
your
was...
wife,
my
Rachel,
wife,
for those unfamiliar with our domestic arrangements.
Yeah, my wife Rachel then spotted an interview with John flagging up this new garden that he's building for this year's Chelsea Flower Show, inspired by Biggin Hill, RAF Biggin Hill, and the Battle of Britain in 1940. And so got in touch with John, and John said, yes, come and have a look and come and see what I'm up to. And here we are, John. So thank you very much. And gosh, it's magnificent, because we're sat on a kind of sort of...
I'll tell you what, John, tell us what we're looking at, and thank you for having us and
exactly,
and getting us on site because we aren't at the show. The show isn't happening. This is the show being put in.
This is the build. You are here at the gritty end, which most people don't get to see.
Yeah,
privileged access.
I think people think they magically appear these gardens, and it's sort of half a dozen artists. There's probably 25, 30 people worked on this project. Getting the sculpture in. Sculpture weighs 7 tons, so logistically it's a massive thing. So it's great for you to be able to see it now, because when you see it at the show, it's going to look completely different.
Well, and also when you're here for the show, there's crowds of people. You're craning your neck to get a glimpse past a lady's spectacular hat. All that sort of Chelsea, because I've never been to the show. I've only seen it on the TV. Exactly. You've got to dodge Alan Titchmarsh, but. So what is the sculpture, and what's the concept, and how do you arrive at I've got a patio in my back garden, and I needed to put the barbecue on the left.
It's really nice, your patio.
It's very nice, but it's not a fence. But it's not a patch on this. So John, how do you arrive at a sculpture like this? Where do you start, and what? I mean, it's evident what you're trying to express, but take us through the process.
I love sculpture. I love making sculpture, and also my career is garden design, and to combine the two, they work seamlessly together.
Yeah.
So the centrepiece of the garden is a 12-foot high sculpture of a Battle of Britain pilot. Looking up at the sky, he's holding a mug of tea as he might have just landed from one of the sorties, ready to go up again. And then wrapping round him, we have a Purbeck stone wall, mimicking a blast wall that might be on an airfield or industrial site.
Yeah.
Sort of protecting him now as it would have done back in 1940. And then beautiful planting beyond it, which will make it quite a reflective space in the future.
Yeah. The statue's very imposing, isn't it, Jim?
Oh, it really is. It's absolutely stunning. It's sort of slats of metal, which is incredibly effective. And what's incredible is how... what would you call that? Would you call it slats?
Whatever you want to
call them.
Slices.
Well, what's interesting about it is because it's in relief, isn't it?
It is,
and it makes it look like it's in motion.
Yeah.
In a way that if it was a solid statue,
you can see all
in a way it was a solid statue, it wouldn't.
Yeah,
and
folds
also
of his trousers and the Mae West and the
lights,
flying helmet,
lights
and
playing on it.
And he's got he's got his flying boots on, and
the further away you get,
sleeves rolled up, you can tell all of that.
That's it. Yeah, so it's humanity. I was trying to get over it. I'm always struck. I mean, one of the things about sculpture and about war is reconnecting with people. People are very familiar with bronzes and these very stoic figures. A very beautiful bronze at the Normandy Memorial that's just been unveiled. But for young people, you need to think of fresh ways of telling a story. How do you attract them into the story? So, let's do something new, something eye-catching. It brings them towards it, and then they can start to learn about what it means.
Yeah. And who is this? Is this from a photograph?
This is my son. So my son, who's also my muse on a lot of my projects.
Oh, brilliant.
So we 3D scanned him. He dressed in period costume, completely accurate. I've learnt my lessons about not having correct uniform on sculpture.
Right.
It always gets picked up.
Yeah, someone will spot it.
Yes.
Yeah.
The wrong watch or whatever.
Yeah.
So he's got everything is authentic on there. Took a lot of trouble to get that correct. And the other thing I didn't want it to be was a kind of Tom Hardy, Dunkirk type figure, flying jacket. They weren't. When you look at a lot of the Battle of Britain pictures of pilots, they were normally skinny.
That's
skinny
absolutely
as a rake.
right. Thank you, John.
And straight out of university.
If at all.
Yes.
Or straight out of grammar school, some of them.
Trousers chest high, shirts too big, desperately trying to look cool, smoking a pipe, or they might be 18.
Yeah.
How old's your son?
So my son's 24. He's 22 when the scan was taken.
So that's spot on.
Absolutely spot on.
He could have been, born in a different time. That could have been him. He went to university. He could have ended up being called up.
Yeah.
Well, I remember being in the Reichswald cemetery and looking down at this 19-year-old who'd survived one day in battle before being killed. And at the time I was looking at it, my own son was 19, and there's nothing like it to kind of really put it in perspective
to connect you with it.
Connect you with it and make a chill sort of go down your spine. But John, I'm also loving on the sort of blast shelter, the kind of it's sort of aping a kind of bunker. You've got these little viewing slits, these little sort of apertures, which I think is incredibly effective.
If you were hiding behind the wall, you'd want something to look out. So it's like a viewing slit out during the war. But also now, what we're doing is giving you the opportunity while you're sat inside this space, because you're wrapped around, you can't see the planting as much. You'll be able to look out and see planting all around you, or people actually wandering around the garden in the distance. It's kind of fun, and we've done all sorts of different things. Like it's got an opening for a wheelchair here, where I want wheelchair access, so they can have the same experience. They can turn the wheelchair out. We've set this at the right height, so you can look out through the viewpoint if you're in a wheelchair, so you can have the same experience as everybody else.
I mean,
it is very calming, isn't it?
It is. I was just going to say that. It's very calming.
Well, sorry to steal your
line. No. We're arriving at the same thought, which is part of its aesthetic purpose, isn't it?
It was, and there is a reason for its monstrous great height. Partly because the idea is that when you're sat in these benches that curve around the inside of the wall, that you can lie back against the wall. You look up at the sky.
Look up at the sky.
The same view that he has. It's completely uncluttered. There's a few planes flying over in the distance, and you're looking at what he's looking at. You can imagine that he's looking at some action that's going ahead. The Hurricane Spitfires, Mr. Smith's. Is he going to get the call to go again?
Or he's counting his mates back in?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Will he finish his mug of tea?
Yeah. How long does the flower show run for those that don't know?
Well,
includes me.
We have a press day, which will be next Monday, and that runs all the way through to the following Saturday. Show finishes. We have 4 days, the whole thing. This is back to soil.
And where's the statue going?
Well, the whole garden is going to Biggin Hill.
Brilliant.
So we're rebuilding the whole garden in July. Everything that you see here will be at Biggin Hill. And it's going to be part of the history trail for the site forever. It's marine grade stainless steel. It's on a 4-ton block of Portland stone. It's not going anywhere anytime soon.
No, it's not going anywhere, no.
And you'll be able to go to the museum there. It's at the end of the runway. You can watch. He's looking at the planes coming and going.
How fabulous. And of course, lots of Spitfires for him to look at as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Heritage hangar just a few hundred yards away.
Friends of the show. Yeah.
Yes, friends of the show, yeah. I love how... I really love how, because it's in the slices that the light feels like it's in motion on it. It looks like waves.
Yeah.
It looks, we're used to looking at waveforms now, aren't we? And it has that sort of ripple in it.
One thing that has worked really well with this, and also the D-Day sculptures, is it photographs incredibly well. It almost turns into something else through a camera lens.
Yes.
Now, as a sculptor, that's incredible. So you get two people are always going to take pictures of it. It almost looks like it's been superimposed. It doesn't look like it's actually there.
Yeah.
So, John, tell me. I mean, I do think this it's absolutely beautiful. It really, really is. I'm gobsmacked by it. But tell me, where did your interest in the Second World War come from? Because your father was in the war, wasn't he? In the RAF.
He was. Yeah, my father was 52 when I was born, so he was almost a grandfatherly figure as I was growing up. He was called up in 1941. He went over, trained as a navigator, went to Miami and then to Canada, as many of them did, and then started to fly actively in 1942 in short Stirlings.
What was his role?
So navigator. So he was quite highly trained. So he was probably the lead navigator in the squadron. I've still got a lot of his training books, and you can see the amount of detail in it. His handwritten notes on every page. He took it very seriously. And he flew with 7 Squadron, and then towards the end 90 Squadron, based at Ridgewell in Essex.
Oh, I know Ridgewell.
Yeah,
I've been there, because it was then taken over by the 8th Air Force.
Well, it was actually, we went to visit there and did a little bit of filming in the run-up, which is a great privilege for me to go and see where
Lovely Paul, did you see him?
Yes, yeah, lovely
He's
place.
He's a great amateur historian, enthusiast.
so
Single-handedly keeps that place on its toes. It's just amazing.
And he hasn't got a lot of information about the RAF, because they were only there for 5 months. It was actually built for the US Air Force.
Right.
And they were
381st Bomb Group, were they?
Yeah. So there was a delay in them coming over, so the RAF
used it for 5
what
months.
Yeah.
Did he talk about his experiences? Or
not much when I was younger. I knew that he'd been in the RAF, but do you know, there was so many of them about, they didn't really talk about it much. They just sort of,
they're not quite so cherished as they are now.
No, they're like gold now, but back in the day there was hundreds of thousands of ex-servicemen. But when he retired, he decided to start doing talks. He worked in education, he was used to talking to groups, and he started to raise money for an organisation called the RAF Escaping Society.
Right.
Because he'd been shot down.
He'd been shot down, and he sort of raised money to send back to the people who rescued them. So all the money that they raised actually were for the helpers back in Belgium, France, wherever that helped them and escaped during the war.
Gosh,
what a fantastic thing!
Brilliant thing to do.
I had no idea that.
So he was shot down. He was in the bag, and did he escape himself, or
he did it? I mean, they were so lucky to survive. It was a miracle. So they crash landed. They didn't parachute out of the plane. So you imagine a short Stirling is an enormous aircraft, much bigger than Lancaster.
Yeah.
Very much compromised by the design, because they clipped the end of the wings to make it fit into the hangars that they had at the time. So its altitude was quite low, 14,000 feet.
Yeah.
He was flying back from Mannheim, and they got hit by a German night fighter, an Me-110, they think, because the first thing he knew about it was a cannon shell came up between his legs, up through the table, and out through the top of the aircraft.
Wow.
So they... what they think happened was that it had a vertical firing gun.
Yeah.
And they used to aim for the wings, so they ended up with both wings on fire. And the pilot managed to crash the plane between 2 trees and knock the wings off. And the fuselage slid down the field, and they all got out.
They all got out?
They all got out. Yeah.
That's
amazing.
Absolutely
incredible.
God, isn't it amazing? First of all, the cannon shell, then the crash landing. I mean, how are you here?
Exactly. He's probably the worst injuries. He crushed some vertebrae in his back on impact, so he couldn't walk at the time. So they put him into a ditch nearby, and they left him there for 24 hours. And this is where the story gets even more incredible, because he always used to carry a camera. He flew in a tweed jacket, because he said, what use is a flying jacket if you get shot down? And he always carried a camera.
Yeah.
So, because he was an opportunist photographer. So while he was in the ditch, as you would, in agony, he took a photograph of the crash site, and then buried the camera with his service watch in the ditch, and then recovered this in 1947. And
John, this is amazing.
47, 4 years later,
went back.
And the film?
Film's fine. So there's one picture on it, and it's a picture of the crash site, and his watch still works. my son's wearing his watch
in
this
the
sculpture.
sculpture.
Yeah,
That's absolutely amazing. What a story.
Yeah, so he got rescued by the French resistance the following evening, got pushed in a car all the way back to Chauny in northern France, and he hid there for about 5 weeks in a car mechanics garage.
Yeah.
And the pilot got captured eventually. He was hidden by the local baker, and one of the villagers denounced him to the Germans, and they hung him the next day in the street.
Oh my God!
So this, I think this had a big impact on my father. About we were risking our lives, but we went into a prisoner of war camp as a helper.
Yeah.
You were very often tortured and then sent to concentration camps.
Yeah.
If you were lucky enough not to be shot.
Lucky to live that long.
Yeah.
We just need to take a quick break here at the Chelsea Flower Show. Welcome back to We Have Ways to Make You Talk. We're at the Chelsea Flower Show, backstage preparations. That's what all the noise is in the background, in case you're wondering.
He did get back, didn't he?
He got back, so he travelled by
Pyrenees.
trains and through Paris and right down to the Pyrenees, and then walked over the Pyrenees in a pair of plimsolls. This is only a few weeks after his accident or the crash, and he got back through Andorra, back to Madrid, I think, and then back to Gibraltar. So he was back home maybe 4 months after the crash.
Did he fly again after that?
No, he didn't.
Fair enough.
He
Terrible dicky back.
partly because of his back, but also because of his knowledge of the escape lines. They were very cautious about sending airmen who'd escaped back flying again in case they got shot down again, and then
God,
obviously.
I didn't know that.
Nor did I, but that makes
Makes
complete
perfect sense,
sense. I mean,
doesn't
that'd be MI9 going. We absolutely can't have these
But also, to be
networks
perfectly honest,
blown, isn't it?
how many missions did he do?
19.
Okay, well, I think he's
done his
19 and
he's
escape. I think he's
done
done
his
his stuff, hasn't he?
sorties, isn't he?
I mean,
He's done
his logbook is just incredible. When you look through it, I mean, it's so detailed. Every bomb load was written down, everything that happened on that flight. I mean, there's
God,
one where they
amazing,
flew over the
yeah.
Alps and they had a twin engine failure. So down to 2 engines, and it just says, turned round, returned to base.
Yeah.
You go, right, no, you've 2 engines down and you're over the top of the Alps. So he flew to Turin, Mannheim, Berlin,
Right.
did some very big bombing raids.
Yeah.
Goodness me.
Was
God,
latterly-
that's the most extraordinary story. I've just never heard anything like it. Of sort of, going in a tweed jacket with your camera, taking a photo, burying it, digging it up again.
I mean, did he? Well, if he didn't talk about it much, but did he regard what he'd done as remarkable, or was it just like
Absolutely not.
Just did
Absolutely
my bit
not.
like everybody else, and
just set of circumstances, and you deal with it, and you do the best you can.
Yeah.
But he was just forever grateful for the help he got. So we're still friends with the family that saved him. We're now down to sort of grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
Really?
I'm still friends on Facebook. We go and visit them occasionally.
Oh, isn't that just fantastic?
Monsieur Lojon, we used
And what
to
was their
go
story?
there
I
as
mean,
kids.
what happened to them in the war?
Well, he was lucky. So he, somebody told him that he was about to be arrested. So he saved 73 servicemen during the war.
Goodness.
Towards the end of the war, Germans were clamping down on the escape routes. Unfortunately, they were very good at infiltrating the escape routes and getting. You get one person, it starts a chain reaction.
yeah.
So he managed to get away, and he hid until the Allies came through, and he then got away. But so he was actually a submariner during the First World War in the French Navy, and had an inherent hatred of the Boche. He always called them the Boche.
Yeah.
And he felt that it was his patriotic duty to help servicemen. I mean, the incredible thing is, I've been there. The garage is opposite where the German garrison was in the town. They had over 2,000 Germans.
So what was the name of the
based
town?
there. Chauny in northern Paris.
Shoney.
Wow.
And I mean, we're talking 20, 30 yards away. So hiding under the noses is very apt description. Slidey wooden doors on his
Absolutely
garage.
extraordinary.
I remember hearing a story about how he had about 4 or 5 allies in there at one point, and they were playing cricket in the garage and getting a bit rowdy.
Good lads.
How's that and all this? And he said, no, you can't be saying anything in English.
Yeah. Wow. What an amazing
What an
story.
amazing story. So have you ever tried to kind of retrace the steps across the Pyrenees?
It's something I want to do. Actually, we were going to do it before COVID came, so we've contacted people over there, and we definitely want to do that before I
well,
get
if you
too
need
old.
somewhere to start your journey, my in-laws have a house down by the Pyrenees, so I mean, we
Yeah.
could keep
Well, if you
talking
need
about it.
anyone to keep you company,
Yeah,
you
to
can't
go
count
with,
us in.
It's
Yeah.
a 3-4 day journey. I think
Yeah.
it is a little bit of training required, but it's doable. There's a lot of guys that are doing these routes.
Yeah.
I think there was 3 or 4 routes over there, and actually, when you get to know people, they're very keen to help you research it, and then they start giving you advice about whether it was. My dad had actually traced it out, but obviously he might have gone a slightly different route than he remembered.
Yeah, exactly. He might not quite know.
No,
because it's all happening.
Just
with
so
urgency
fast.
and all that. Sort
I mean, the incredible thing was his parents didn't even know. They were just been told he was missing.
Right.
And generally in those days, if you were missing, you were
gone,
more than likely gone, and in bomber command.
Yeah.
So did he just suddenly turn up?
He just
one
turned
day?
up on the doorstep, knocked on the door, and she just fainted on the spot. He wasn't in uniform. He was wearing some ragtag clothes that had been given to him when he got back to the UK. And just
Hello, Mum.
Hi, Mum.
My God.
How amazing.
So, John, this is your second sort of Second World War piece of work, a garden. Do you think that's going to be a thing you do? You're going to revisit with further commissions, or
maybe on the sculpture, but
right.
at Chelsea, I probably think that would be it, because you do get to the point where people go, John's doing another wartime garden.
That's because you obviously you don't want to get pigeonholed, do you?
No, that's it. So the D-Day garden led to this project, because I feel when you're covering wartime topics, you've got to be very sensitive with it.
Yeah.
You don't want it to become a kind of Disney type garden. So with the D-Day one, I try to keep the veterans in the loop all the time, all the way through the project, so that when they visited it, they felt some connection to it.
Yeah.
And then that's led to this one. So it was a chance conversation with someone about how there isn't an awful lot of Battle of Britain memorial out there, but everyone knows the story. I think there's a nice sculpture down on the coast somewhere, but they're not in the scale that perhaps D-Day has been commemorated.
Yeah.
But John, just going back to your Normandy one, I mean, how did you find your veteran? I mean, tell me the story about that and how that came about.
Yeah, well, we worked with a charity called D-Day Revisited, who were fabulous. They've disbanded now. It was just a father and daughter, Victoria and John Phipps. He just read an article about how they were struggling for funding to get D-Day veterans back to Normandy every year. So he started a charity to organise trips.
Yeah.
And they took hundreds of veterans back every year. They secured LIBOR funding for them so that they could pay for all their trips. Yeah. They all became friends. I mean, when you go and visit their charity base, it's incredible, because people leave them stuff, and there's a stack of berets in there that paratroopers, Navy, Army, everything you can think of. Every incredible story from D-Day is encompassed in this one little room. So word got out there, veterans started to contact them. They were always very fun trips out there. So working with them, we got put in touch with all the veterans, and one particular veteran, Bill Pendle, who won the military medal, quite a real cheeky chappy, a real twinkle in his eye, and I thought he would be perfect for a sculpture. So we worked with him to create the stone sculpture, and then I looked at archive pictures of him, and I recreated a sculpture of him in the correct uniform that he would have worn as somebody working in signals. And sadly, he died just before the garden was put here. So his best pal, Joe Catini, who's also landed on the D-Day beaches, represented him during the show and afterwards. So Bill's there forever, and he's overlooking the exact beach he landed on, Gold Beach, looking out to sea. You've got the Mulberry Harbour remains still there, and it's a very atmospheric place.
Fantastic.
It's the most stunning.
I've not
sculpture.
seen it. No.
It's
I've been on the cliffs above
fabulous.
Hermange, but I've not seen the garden.
Yeah, it's very near the cinema, 360-degree cinema. So anybody visiting there, if you go to the cinema, you'll walk past that garden.
It was there for the 75th, wasn't it, in 2019?
It was, yeah. We finished it the day before.
Did you really?
So yeah, it was because obviously the show finishes here. I didn't
Nothing
leave
like
here
a
till-
deadline, is there,
Yeah,
John?
we left here on the 1st of June, and I had to have it finished by the 6th of June.
Yeah.
So 5 days to install a whole garden. So we had a whole team of Royal Engineers, some Gurkhas there,
Fantastic.
All my crew, we just went at it and just got it done. We just had to do it.
Brilliant.
Fantastic installation. We've had 250,000 visitors in the first 4 months it was installed there. Loads of photographs. I still get, it's 3 years later and I'm still getting photographs of people who take the trouble to send them to me.
Yeah.
Well, it's a nice legacy for Bill, but it must be gratifying for you, isn't it?
Oh, amazing. I mean, it's the longevity of it I love. The Chelsea has a sense of temporary about it. It's a piece of theatre. So I see it's very much a journey for the sculpture. We're previewing it here before it goes to its proper place.
Yeah.
Where it should be, which is Biggin Hill, where... another reason why it's so big, because you're going to be viewing it from quite a way away from the main road.
Yes.
From the airport.
Yes, you need to be able to see him, don't you?
You need to be able to see it, and you want to be able to see him poking above all the planting there, and you'll go, wow, let's, draw people into it. We'll have some signage there and be able to explain the story.
Well, it's quite stunning.
It is absolutely beautiful.
Really do it justice there. My words have failed me.
Yeah, I mean, we're incredibly lucky because we're seeing it on a beautiful day. It's the warmest day of the year. There's little sort of white fluffy clouds above us. The sky is blue. A smattering of colour amongst sort of gorgeous greenery. The sandstone of your sort of blast pen. The
Wild
wild daisies,
the whole thing.
I mean, we've got
beautiful sort of stone wall, stone floor
every
as well.
part of it really, because you find out so many interesting things. So this is Purbeck stone from Dorset in the wall, and the sculpture stands on a piece of Portland stone. So the Portland stone represents all the historic buildings in London that were destroyed during the Blitz,
and of course Portland stone used for the Commonwealth War Graves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Headstones.
And the wall Purbeck stone, I found out that after the Great Fire of London, there was a royal decree that all the paving in London had to be made from Purbeck stone.
Right.
So we've kind of incorporated that into the idea. And then throughout the sort of little nooks and crannies, I've went and sourced a lot of Blitz damaged material, sort of human little elements, bits of little teapots, and we got them off Crosby Beach actually in Liverpool, where the anti-Gormley figures are.
Yeah.
And we're going to tuck those away in the rocks, and so it's that human element. I mean, this pilot it's a Battle of Britain pilot, but he could be any pilot from any era.
Yeah.
Afghanistan, Iraq, even a German flyer would recognise himself in this.
Yeah.
That being on the ground but looking to the sky.
Yeah.
Well, it's absolutely stunning.
Yeah. Thank you so much, John, for your time and for giving us a sneak preview. And
very privileged.
Look forward to seeing this in Biggin Hill next time we're messing about with Spitfires.
Yeah, we'll be looking out for you next week and hoping you get your gold.
Yeah.
Thank you. No pressure.
Well, thanks everyone for listening. See you all again soon. Bye-bye.
Cheerio.